Hi everyone, welcome to part 3 of the video series on the language, grammar and real life tasks that we use on the topic of work and career. I'm Ankeet, you're watching e4ehub.com and we are continuing with the series on work and career. This is part 3 of that series video. Let's look at what's in store. So first of all, if you know, from my previous 2 videos, I completed this part. We were doing the work and career topic. In part 1, we completed vocabulary, and that was words and expressions connected to work, career. If you haven't seen that, I will leave the link in the description. You'll also see that in the eye icon at the top of your screen. So that will help you to cover that in case you haven't watched that. In part 2, we completed the grammar aspect. The grammar was active versus passive voice, and how do we use passive voice in many situations and structures connected to workplace English or English about explaining work procedures and so on. We are going to apply the vocabulary and the grammar both, and then we are going to cover a real life task in this particular video. So what's the task going to be like? The first things is, this real life task is going to take the example of a plastic recycling process. It doesn't mean you will only use the language and the grammar in plastic recycling process related speech. You can use the same grammatical structures in any workflow about any organization. If you follow the step-by-step instructions, if you apply the grammar that we have learned in part 2 and the vocabulary learned in part 1, you should be good to explain any work procedure. We will change the sentence structures from active to passive, and then we will look at explaining the full procedure. I will give you a demo, and then you have to try at your end trying to explain a workflow step by step, all in passive structures. That's what we are going to accomplish in this third part of the series on work and career. Are you ready for it? I hope so you are. Let's get to it. Amazing. So first things first, let's understand a work process. To be able to explain a certain workflow or a work procedure, we need to understand the steps that go in that workflow. Okay? For example, certain workflows are really complex, so you will have more than 10 to 15 steps. Others are not so complex, you will have 4 to 5 steps. Whatever the workflows are, you have to understand the steps properly first. And that is exactly what we are going to do in this part of the video. Are you ready for it? There we go. So first, do you know how the plastic bottles are recycled? The ones that we use when we have soft drinks, water bottles made of plastic. It's a work process, right? It's a workflow. So first of all, what do we need to do? We need to understand the steps. Let's try to gain information about these steps. Okay, go. So what is step 1? Put used plastic bottles in recycling bins. That's step 1, right? Now, what I want you to do is, I want you to convert this active voice sentence and make it passive voice. I'll do the first example for you. Plastic bottles are put in recycling bins. So what am I doing? I am doing something which we have already done in part 2. This is the main verb of the sentence, to put. What am I doing? I am making it to be plus put. So The subject here is plastic bottles and it's plural. Hence, for a passive sentence, plastic bottles are put in recycling bins. Are we all clear? Yes? Sure? Put becomes are and the past participle of put is also put. So it's put, put, put. All three forms are the same. Yeah, lovely. That's step 1. Remember, plastic bottles are put in recycling bins. Step 2. Collect bottles and take them to the recycling factory. So, what are we going to do? We are going to turn the verbs into passive. Collect becomes are collected, bottles are collected and are taken to the recycling factory. What was step 1? Plastic bottles are put in the recycling bins. Bottles are then collected and taken to the recycling factory. Are collected and taken to the recycling factory. That is step 2. So what happens at the factory? Step 3. These bottles are heated and melted at the factory. To make it more convenient for the user, I can use at the factory first. I can simply say at the factory, the bottles are heated and then melted. Clear? Any doubt? So what do we have? Step 1, put the plastic bottles in the recycling bin. The bottles are collected and taken to the recycling factory. At the factory, the bottles are heated and melted. What happens after the melting process? New bottles are formed. Remember, I am converting it to passive. I want you to make a note of it. New bottles are formed and then cooled. Okay. Melting makes it easier to give shape to the bottle. That means to form new bottles. And then they are cooled. That's step 4. And then new bottles are distributed to companies, refilled and sold to the public afterwards. New bottles are distributed to the companies. The companies refill and sell them to the public, means the bottles are refilled and sold to the public. So what did I do? I turned every active voice sentence to passive voice. Because whenever you are describing the procedure, the action that happens is more important than the subject. Okay? What happens is more important than who does that action, because anybody can do that same procedure. When you have an experienced worker leaving and somebody new coming in that position, they'll do the same actions. Hence, the passive voice is used to focus on that action and less on the subject of the action. Are you clear with that? Good, nice. This is a quick revision of all the 5 steps. Of course, I'm using the example of plastic recycling, but you can very well use the same method, break the workflow into steps, convert the step-by-step explanation to passive voice, and then you have to speak about it all together as if you are the senior person explaining the workflow to a new joinee, somebody who's just joined the organization today. Okay, let's do a quick rehearsal. What you see on the screen is active. I'm going to turn this to passive. Number 1, used plastic bottles are put in recycling bins. Then these bottles are collected and taken to the recycling factory. After that, at the factory, bottles are heated and then melted. New bottles are formed and they are left to cool. The bottles that we get are distributed to the companies. Then they are refilled and sold to the public. Is that clear, everyone? It's really not complicated, okay? It's really not complicated. I'm going to leave 10 seconds for you to just have a look. If you want to pause for a little more, please do so. Pause, prepare yourself. The ideas have to be clear in your mind. And then when you deliver the speech, it has to be confident and a lot more fluent. That's what we are moving towards. Okay, perfect. Can we do a short speech describing this process step by step? Let's try. Okay, let's try. So here I have a template for all of you. I have the first sentence converted to passive. Try to use the connecting words like next, after that, at the factory, last but not least. You can use that, to sound more fluent, more connected. Here we go. Okay, here we go. First, used bottles are put in the plastic recycling bin. Next, the used bottles are collected and are taken to the factory, which will recycle the bottles. Following transportation, the bottles are heated and melted. Then they are formed into new bottles. After cooling, the recycled plastic bottles are distributed to companies in order that they can be refilled and sold to the public. Are we on the same page? I hope so. Okay, you want to take time, you take time. There is absolutely no need to rush. There's absolutely no need to rush at all. You want to take time, you take full time. Okay, that kind of concludes this part 3 of the video and the whole series. I would request everyone to look at part 1, vocabulary, part 2, grammar, and part 3, the real life communication task, which is what we just did right now. Look at all of it, how many ever times you want, but look at it completely, and that will help you a lot. So first of all, I'm going to request everyone to subscribe and motivate all of us here at E4E Hub to bring good, amazing content to improve your English fluency. If you're on Facebook, you can also kind of follow our Facebook page. We'll also have some Facebook exclusive content there in some time, and that will also help you to obviously be a little more fluent as well. So that is it. I will see you in the next video, and that is it. Okay, happy learning. Take care and see you back with a new topic and new vocabulary, new grammar, new real life talk.